Welcome back to the Dead Elephants podcast.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Yeah. Chris, usually for the show, we do like a sharing question.
Yep.
But what I wanted to do this week is actually work on an idea.
Ooh.
So an idea that doesn't exist. You suggested one. I think it's a really great idea, but I want to workshop with it.
Sure.
Okay, so Chris's great idea this week, what is it?
Lego library.
I love this. Play it out.
Okay, so I'm a bit of a Lego fan. Duncan is in a Lego palace as we speak. There are Lego sets everywhere.
We're sitting in a room right now filled with Lego. There
you
it
go.
is.
And I looked at one across his other shoulder, which was unboxed. Unboxed? No, boxed. It hasn't been opened yet. What is it?
This one here.
Luke Skywalker.
It's Red 5. It's the Luke Skywalker bust set.
Now, okay, I'm not condemning you here, and I'm going to commit a faux pas. What did that cost you?
This one, well, Mum gave it to me as a Christmas present. So most of the Lego sets,
Well, that would retail for what? $120?
$79.99.
Ooh, bargain. All right.
Yep.
Okay, $79.99. You're going to build it. You're going to get a lot of joy out of it.
Absolutely.
Probably once you've built it, though, it's going to sit on the shelf and
Like the rest of them.
collect dust. Correct.
Yes, they
and
become-
I'm speaking from, I'm a fellow, pilgrim with you on this journey, so I'm not judging you for it.
Yeah. So what's
But
your suggestion with
my
the Lego
suggestion
library?
is you buy the Luke Skywalker helmet. I buy a different set, a Darth Vader helmet, let's say.
Yep.
You build your Luke Skywalker one. I build my Darth Vader one. Then we swap, and we get two for the price of one. We enter into a co-op. Everyone buys a set. There's 50 of us.
Yep.
We're all buying one set each.
Okay.
Now you've got 50 Lego sets to build, and it's not taking up all the space in your house.
So the idea is that once I'm finished building that Lego
Yep.
set, I take a photo of it with
Yep.
the kiddos, I break it down, I
Yep.
put it back in a Ziploc sealed bag,
Yep.
and then pass it on to the next person.
Correct.
Okay, so here's issue number one.
He's asked me to pitch my idea, and now he's going to pick it apart.
No, because all ideas are great, but let's work through it. Okay. First issue is that Lego sets come in bags. That one
Yes.
there has 4 or 5
Sure.
bags in it. Makes it way easier to build them because you just build through the steps. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
So the bags are numbered, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Do you know what I do when I buy a Lego set?
What's that?
Rip them all up together,
Okay.
put all the pieces together, because when I do them one bag at a time, it's too quick.
Right.
I don't like the numbered bags, so I'm going to counter your argument.
Okay. So then that it doesn't stop you from building
Sure.
it. It just slows the process.
Which I would
down.
argue is a greater joy.
Okay. Excellent.
Better
all right.
bang for your buck.
So you got to be okay with the fact that there's going to be a big old bag of Lego.
Yep, a lot of your time is going to be spent sorting and not necessarily building.
Okay, perfect. All right. Then apart from that, what if you lose a piece? How do you handle that?
That is I'm not going to lie, that's the problem of the system.
Right.
And how do you pinpoint who the transgressor was in the supply chain?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can always buy replacement
You can.
pieces, and the smaller ones usually, there's a little cup behind me. I don't know if I can grab it. So I've got like a little cup of all my previous Lego pieces. I'll hold it up if you are watching it, and it's got
Complete with brick separator.
brick separator. It's got it all in there. You've got to somehow preserve those, throw them in the bag. Listen, I love it as an idea. It would give you a chance too, if you were serious about it and you had a significant enough co-op, that the Millennium Falcon full size.
It's now in play, right?
It's now in play.
Yeah.
Love this as an idea. I don't see why you can't make it bigger.
Go on.
So why couldn't you have a Lego library?
Sure.
And the goal is, I walk in, there's a librarian, there's a Lego staff.
This is like Video Store of the 90s, but for like you hire it for a week.
Yeah, and so what happens in between is the Lego engineers, when they get someone returning an item, rebuilds the set, make sure all the pieces are there,
Yep.
and then adds the pieces in that maybe have gotten lost. You get charged, it's only about 30 cents a piece, so maybe you get charged $1.50
Wow.
for lost pieces. They rebuild it, repackage it, and so you always know that the piece set that you
And as if you're not going to struggle to find people for that job.
yeah. Well, I don't understand why Lego doesn't do this because
How durable is Lego though? Like if you keep building it, and I'm not sure though, seriously, I've rebuilt a few sets that I've got 3 or 4 times and it's not quite clicking as tightly as it once did.
Okay, yes, I agree with that part, and the smaller ones function a little bit like that. But I've got a Lego set in there that's from 1992. and it still builds great.
We might get sued by Lego. That's the other problem.
No, have Lego do it. So here's my...
Yeah, but they're... Okay, so you're Netflixing Lego, really. Because I was going to say, they're not selling as many sets at that point. But it's a subscription model now.
But you've got within Lego, the manufacturing plant is all robotic.
Mm-hmm.
So surely you could have it robotic whereby you return it, it's sips
Yes.
it all,
Yes.
and it's got the algorithm for all the different
It's always
pieces.
the algorithm.
Right, yeah, but they can read all the different pieces.
Yeah, it
and
recognizes there's something missing.
so maybe you don't even have to build it. That the robot
Mm-hmm.
just figures it out, repackages it, and it's ready to be borrowed again. You could repay those. The thing is let's say it's $79.99, and you rented those sets out at $5.
Yep. Bargain. I'd pay that.
$5.
Yep.
What I only have to get to 14 times that gets rented out before it's paid for itself.
Yep.
You could rebuild a set 14 times
Yep.
before it starts not
Yeah.
clicking.
It's
right.
a video store for Lego.
Yeah, and then you break it down, throw it in a box, and resell it as bulk Lego.
Problem is we're now publishing this idea and someone's going to take it.
Great, take it. I'm in.
If someone makes $1 billion out of this, I'm going to be fuming. But we just recorded an episode on greed, so that's okay.
Just cut us in. Here.
I want 10% equity. I
Yeah.
don't want to spend any time on it, but I want 10% at the end of it.
No, you don't get 10%.
11?
No, I'm giving you 2%. What, 2% on $1 billion company?
That wouldn't have existed without my idea?
Someone has to put it into place.
What are we talking about today, Duncan?
We are talking about social media.
Whoa. Let's try our Lego library on social media.
Okay, let's do it. Where do we sit on the elephant scale for social media?
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I do social media. I don't naturally love social media. I'll call myself probably a 6. When I published my book, the first question the publisher asked was, what's your social media footprint?
Yep.
That kind of was the impetus for me to kind of get on it a little bit more.
Okay.
Naturally, I don't like it, to be honest, but I do it. And I think that's probably a mercy because I don't really struggle with social media addiction. So I'll put myself at a 6.
Okay.
Yeah. Yourself?
Probably an 8 or a 9 because for Brekkie Radio, you really had to engage in social media a lot. So I was on it probably 7 or 8 hours a day doing
Really?
social. Well, yeah, because as part of the narrative of what you're on Instagram, you're on
Yep.
Facebook, you're checking all of those, you're trying to promote it, you're trying to get content to go viral, and so it just became an obsession for me for a very, very, very long time and an unhealthy one. So yeah, I would say it's probably at 8 or 9. Yeah.
Do you naturally like it?
I like creating content
Yep.
that is shareable. That
What
does-
do you like about that?
I think I just like creating stuff. Like I like this.
Yep.
This for me is an outlet whereby I can sit down and create something that's thoughtful, that's reflective, that has insights that hopefully will be beneficial to somebody. It's the same reason when I did stand-up comedy. I enjoyed the challenge of walking into a room and making people laugh
Yep.
who were sitting there with their arms folded saying, make me laugh.
Yep.
That for me is good. And so I like creating content. I don't necessarily like social media as the platform to share that on, but that's the platform I've been given to create that content on.
We I think the idea for this episode came out of the conversation we were having about depression. And
Yes.
I asked you basically what's going on in the world, this rise of mental illness that we're seeing, this epidemic.
Yeah.
And your first answer was social media, and that was the catalyst for this conversation.
Yeah.
So my take on social media at this point, and it's so fascinating. I feel like this happens all the time in a fallen world, but this is like the version of that in our generation. You know, I remember the first time I saw an iPhone, probably 15 years ago, I'm going to say now. It was like, this thing has the internet. Are you serious? You know, it was like unbelievable. The screen was still a bit too small and it was a bit finicky, but hey, it was there. In such a short amount of time, what became this fascinating anomaly, discovery, new horizon, it feels like it's turned into an absolute nightmare.
Sure.
To me, anyway. Like, it just feels like it's destroying us. And I wrestle even saying that because I'm like, I feel like the old man, you know, shaking his fist at the kids going, these generations, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it does feel different, not just generationally, but it's changed the way we relate as humans, like on a universal, what we've always known level. This isn't just like jazz turning into rock and roll and
Yeah.
this is like a whole new beast that we haven't yet worked out what the implications are, and I find that a bit scary.
Yeah. So my point with all of this was when you look at the rise of depression and anxiety in a culture, it's directly attributed to the levels of digital addiction within a community. So depression and anxiety goes up at the same rate as digital addiction goes up. So
Yep.
the more access to screens, the more access to social media, the more access to all of these things, you can see an empirical connection between both those things.
And what you're not a psychologist, I'm not. Like, do you know of what is it? What's contributing?
Well, we used to call it keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
So the whole purpose was in keeping up with the Joneses, we knew that that was unhealthy. You can never do it. And so we would say that. But when you've got access to that on your living room couch,
Yep.
so your house used to be a sanctuary, you get away from the Joneses, you get into that space and you might think about it. But now you're staring at the Joneses on your phone. You're staring at the Joneses in your bedroom. You're staring at, this trendy lass with a fedora hat on a beachside wearing a bikini who's coming out of a van, and it looks incredible, and that's
Yep.
all you want to do.
Yep.
And it's on all levels.
Yep.
I'm into wood turning, and so I don't do it, but I watch people turn bowls out of wood, and I think, gosh, I'd love to be doing that. Or knife makers who do the same thing. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yep.
Is
It's
when
there. You can access it.
you're inundated with it constantly, you get a low value of self. That impacts you a whole bunch of different ways. It's dumping dopamine into your system and becomes an addiction whereby you need the screen to function and give you that kick.
Yep.
And you're not getting it from healthy places like bushwalks and stepping outside and going for a run and kicking a soccer ball. Is that what we need now is a screen.
Yep.
And I say that knowing that I've got 2 cameras, 2 microphones,
It
4
is-
screens.
Yeah, looking around this room, it is interesting. You just pause on that.
Yep.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can spot 7 screens, 2 cameras. Yep.
Yep.
Printer. It's wild, isn't it?
And the United Nations says that kids should have an hour of screen time
Yeah.
a day. Nowhere near that number.
Yeah. So you've raised. I've got a twofold theory as to what's hurting us about social media.
Yep.
You've talked about comparison, and that's one of them.
Big time.
You know, the old adage, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep.
Yeah, like access to comparison is just everywhere now, and it makes us feel crap about our own situation. So that's one thing.
Yep.
The other thing I think that happens is catastrophization. So you may be familiar with this word. I only learned it a few weeks ago. Doom scrolling. So we kind of get off on looking at bad news.
Yep.
I'd blow it if I know why, but we do. And then to your point about algorithms, the algorithm will then pick that up and feed us more bad news.
Yep.
And I've got a kind of theological theory about this that I think as to why it's hurting us, and I call it the throne room perspective.
Okay.
So throughout time and space, God has always been sitting on his throne as the King of Kings. He's the one that sees all. He's omnipresent. He's omniscient. And because he's God, he can handle it.
Sure.
We as humans, we were privy to the problems of our own pocket. Obviously, with a printing press and newspaper, that pocket became a little bit more widened, but it was still limited. Now, at the touch of a finger, we can find out and we can be privy to in one hit the problems of the world in a way that we cannot handle.
Yeah.
So not only are we comparing ourselves and feeling bad about ourselves, we're also being fed a narrative that the world is going down, it's burning, it's getting worse, and it's just too much negativity for any one person to handle. And we're functionally sitting on the throne that only God has ever done in his knowledge. We now know everything, and it's too much.
Yeah. Well, and there's a clear demonstration of this. What was the first global catastrophe to be broadcast? You don't know it. It's Mount Vesuvius.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that was the first time that we saw in the history of the news that you could actually globally broadcast an event that the world could see, and it increased anxiety. Global anxiety went up as a
Yeah.
result of that. And so then you think after that, I think you got Chernobyl in there as well. That's another event, but it's not globally broadcast. You're getting leaked information over
Yep.
it's a much more
Yep.
serious event,
Yep.
but the information is getting leaked.
Yep.
That's part of the challenge, is that we go for community and for connection, social media and a global news cycle and things like that we have access to at our fingertips at all time should bring us to a place of connectedness,
Yep.
but it doesn't.
Yep.
It brings us to a place of anxiety, low value of self.
Yep.
Also, this is way too much information for us to process.
Yep.
We're becoming dumber as a result, right? Like there used to be, you mentioned this in one of the earlier podcasts, but this idea of social media is designed to create an echo chamber of everything that you like.
Yep.
And
The algorithm.
the algorithm, right? And so the best example of this is if it would be like me as a parent going, my child likes cupcakes. I can see, Ruby, you like cupcakes. Why don't you have another cupcake? Why don't you have another cupcake? Why don't you have another cupcake? Seeing as though that you like cupcakes, can I give you croissants? Would you like croissants?
Yep.
Or danishes? And all my child gets
Yep.
is danishes and croissants, and I can't figure out why they've got profound health problems.
Yep.
I'm just giving them the things that they need.
Yep.
But scholarly academia requires you to defend a piece of paper, which means that you have opponents to that paper, giving a counterpoint of view.
Yep.
Social media knows that you don't like that.
Yep.
Oh, you don't like hearing the things that you don't like.
Yeah.
Whereas what we need is counterpoint.
I heard, there's probably no way to ever prove it, but the theory was that if social media did not exist, the Capitol riots under Trump would not have happened. And more broadly, the polarization of politics in the West is essentially down to largely the algorithm, because we're feeding ourselves with our own news biases. And the crazy thing is, like, I'll give you one example of it for me. I remember clicking an article on Warren Buffett once, the wisdom of Warren Buffett, or seven tricks to Warren Buffett's success or something. I cannot tell you how many Warren Buffett articles I now get, I now click on,
All the time.
I now ascribe to, and I now feel crap about my own self because I haven't achieved the success of Warren Buffett. Like, it was it was a click. It was like this innocuous click. And the thing is about, and I'll talk about Facebook, but I'm sure it's others as well. I don't know when it changed. Like, it's gone from 10 years ago being my friend's holiday pictures, which is challenging in and of itself. It's now like sponsored articles and news articles and 7 tips to success. I'm like, this is not the page that it once was.
Yeah.
And it's slowly evolved into something that I didn't sign up for. And we've spoken about cancel culture on another episode as well, but it's also become deeply political, opinionated, vitriolic, tribal. It just feels like a whole lot of yuck to me, to be honest with you.
Because you're a commodity that can be sold.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why Apple had to enact in their phone, do you want this app to track your
you.
data, right? Is because you are now a commodity
Yep.
that exists within social media that you can be sold product to. And it's the joke that I used to make all the time when I was at Hope. The algorithm knows me, which is why I buy stuff off Instagram. And so the commodity just fed off that and gave
Yep.
me more and more and more and more of what I liked.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons why, and maybe the people would think that I'm the social media, and I said it at the start, I was on social media all the time, but I'm actually weaning myself off it.
Yep.
I'm hardly on Instagram. I'm hardly on Facebook. I adopted a strategy that John Mark Comer taught me in the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I check social media. Well, I try to check social media once a week.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And I've got so much more time in my life, and I'm far less anxious and depressed. And I'm trying to encourage my whole family to do the same, because I know personally that me reducing that has had much better outcomes in my life. And the only thing I feel like is occasionally I miss a conversation.
Yep.
But prior to social media, I was missing conversations constantly.
Yep.
And I've now kind of reframed myself to say that there's a joy in missing out on that. I never had to stress about it. I never had to think about it. I never had to engage in it. And as a result of that too, I'm feeling far more creative when it comes to creating my own content because I'm not staring at someone else's
You're
content.
producing, not consuming.
That's exactly what I wanted to do. And for me to become a producer, I had to stop consuming.
At the same time, to play devil's advocate, I don't want to be so simplistic and say social media is bad. Like, I want to have a more nuanced conversation than that.
Sure.
Where's the good in it? How do we redeem it? How do we use it well? Obviously, through this podcast, we're dancing with the devil, if you like, and we're on all the platforms, etc. So we obviously we don't feel so bad about this that we're not joining in the party of it. How do we do social media well? Because it's too simple to say, I'm not going to do it at all.
Well, let's run it through the lens of redeem, receive, reject. Okay?
Go on.
Can we receive it without any changes whatsoever? Christ's love, we receive it. Okay? There's a whole bunch of compassion, grace, humility, receive. Social media, can we receive it? No.
Is in unfettered and
Unfettered,
without
pure,
critique.
without thought,
Yep.
without reflection, without structure. Let it in, baby.
Which is really functionally what we've done
Yep.
for the last 15 years, and look where it's gotten us.
Yeah, and that's why you see, even within Silicon Valley, a move to shape this in a much better light. Do we reject it? It is unholy, unworthy, and so we throw it out.
Yep.
Pornography, reject.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
That's. I don't think it sits there.
Yep.
So, how do we redeem it? Let's look at the strengths. First strength of social media is it puts the ability for anybody to hold platform and communicate via means of media.
Yep.
That's one of the great strengths of YouTube.
Yep.
You no longer have to go to an organization that has a platform. Is you can just create.
A friend of mine in media once said, it used to be the world is your oyster, now it's the world is your audience.
Absolutely. And I think there's great strength in that. Twitch does that as well. There's a whole bunch of different platforms whereby now you have the ability to broadcast cheaply from your own home, and it no longer rests with a few.
Yep.
It rests with a many.
Yep.
It's the Gutenberg press of television.
Yeah. That's a
Is-
really good way of putting it.
Is social media. I think Luther would have campaigned for it if he had a chance. Because now we can broadcast scripture.
Yeah.
We can broadcast.
The 95 tweets. Sorry.
That's good.
Das ist gut following, ja.
Yeah.
Sorry to our German listeners for that racial stereotype,
They account for less than 1% of our listeners.
according to social media data.
That's good. It also means that now we are responsible for our own fact checking. I dare say that's bad.
Okay.
Where's the accountability? And that's one of the things that I think Facebook was chasing,
Yep.
Instagram has been chasing, YouTube is chasing, is how do we fact check this well?
Yep.
How do we ensure that this is not abusive hate speech?
Yep.
How do we assume that and ensure that it's appropriate? Those are big, important questions. And I think it's one of those ethics conversations that we have been slowly trying to catch up to
Yep.
that needs to be escalated.
Yes.
How
Put
do we-
another way, I think it will be a lot more legislated in the next 20 to 50 years than it currently is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so those are the kinds of conversations that are really important for social media. And because there's a whole bunch of mistrust, we see that with conversations around COVID and vaccinations, and you could throw anything through that, right? Like
Yep.
Essential oils, Thermomix, political alignment, books, scholarly articles.
Yes.
Is if we don't have accountability in place or fact checking in place for that, I can say whatever I want to say and pretend like it's true. And because I did it well,
Yep.
with good lighting, and I was an engaging talking head,
Yeah.
people will believe
Which I now can do for like $100 with a light ring behind my screen.
exactly.
Doesn't take a lot to look legit.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's the challenges that we're facing with social media.
Mm.
So I think it's a redeeming thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's places where we can bring in healthy practices to ensure that we're not on it all the
Yep.
time, that it doesn't dominate our lives, because we do have the ability to make it an addiction really quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a few layers to this. There's the addiction piece, which obviously we want to be discerning about. But there's also, to use that word again, the discernment piece.
Yep.
What is real, what is not, in a legitimacy of truth. But I think as a Christian also, what is adoptable and what is not
Yeah.
in light of Scripture. You
Yeah.
know, there's a discernment on that level. You know, and we could go down so many different rabbit warrens of that. Is, you know, which sermons do I listen to? Which ones do I not? Which Christian content is biblical? Which ones are not? You know, there's just noise everywhere, whether that's in Christian thought, whether that's just in the world more broadly, that a spirit of discernment, and I suppose, I guess, a spirit of discernment that ultimately has to come with a knowledge of the word to go, yes, that one's good, I can adopt that, I can go down that, or no. And I'm not even talking about this sermon or that sermon, but just the tone of this thread or the tone of that one. And, you know, to be honest, that's been one of the biggest grievances for me, having gone on social media as an author. Not that my following's big or whatever, but, you know, you follow other Christian thinkers because you want to kind of get in that space.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so militant.
Yeah.
I'm so grieved by the self-righteousness of Christian thinkers on social media. I think, massive fanboy. So I'll say Tim Keller's one of the great exceptions to this. He has this way of being able to play a dead bat to a lot of vitriol that comes his way.
Yeah.
But others, and look, Keller's a wise guy. He's got age on his side. He's probably seen it all. But there are others who just seem to fight fire with fire, and it just feels like such a bad witness to Christ to me. Some of the behavior on social media of Christians to other Christians. We've spoken about cancel culture on another episode. Honor and shame just seems to be getting thrown around like candy, you know, and it's just it grieves me. It actually makes me really, really sad to scroll on Twitter and see where the mental and emotional and spiritual energy is being put in these spaces. I don't have an answer for it, but I just want to lament, just as a Christian, of what I see on these platforms.
It's not a parable, but it's a metaphor, I guess. There's an African tribal leader, and he's standing under a tree explaining to his people what they're going to do this year. And it's a big vision conversation, you know, and we're going to plant these crops, and we're going to go here, and we're going to build these residences, and we're going to expand this farmyard, and everyone is hanging on every one of his words, right? And at the moment that he's kind of getting to his big point, the donkey that's tied to the tree that he's talking under just starts really loud, just like this.
I feel like that's our new intro sound.
Yeah. And so the thing is, though, this leader doesn't break stride. Just keeps talking. Hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Doesn't even flinch. Meanwhile, the donkey's just escalating, right? The donkey just gets more. Tribal leader finishes what he has to say, says, is there any questions? Everyone's cheering. Let's go get after it. And they all walk away, right? And the whole time, the donkey tied to the tree is bleating as loud as it possibly could. You know what the premise of that story is? Ignore the jackass tied to the tree. Is it? We don't do that on social media. And it was one of the hardest things I learned when I was in radio, is that I don't give attention to every person who has an issue with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're just a jackass tied to a tree.
Yeah.
And I think that there is part of the problem that you're addressing, is that we have this rampant vitriol.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are just trolls.
Yeah.
And are just unhappy with what you're saying.
And the
permanently.
evangelist in me grieves it, because I'm like, what kind of mission? What are we doing? Like, we are degrading the name of Jesus in this pursuit of self-righteousness. It's just disgusting. And it's not that I personally agree with the original.
Yeah.
It's not about agreement, but it's its tone and just I don't like it.
But why do you have to change it?
What do you mean?
Well, so I understand why it grieves you, and I
Yep.
understand why it affects you, and
Yep.
I understand why you're frustrated about it, because we shouldn't act like that.
Yep.
But it's not my responsibility to change the jackass tied
No,
to a
it's
tree.
not. I just go into a point of lamenting it. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not trying to change it.
It's just the empath in you.
Yeah.
I'm just more brutal.
And look, I'm
Okay.
not like people have got like I mentioned on another episode. My favorite podcast is "You're Not Crazy." Sam Albury, Ray Ortland.
Yeah.
Ray Ortland quit Twitter because he was just so on the back of he just grieved by what he was seeing. And another one, John Tyson. John Tyson's an Australian guy, pastor in New York. Just when was it? February 20. So about a month ago. This is his quote or his tweet. He says, "Hey folks, I've been on Twitter since 2007, coming up on 16 years. Sadly, I think it's beyond a redemptive medium at this point, so I'm out. I'll be pastoring church.nyc if you're in the city and looking for a community to worship with. Wishing you much grace." So John Tyson
Yeah.
has 27.6 thousand followers, and now on his header it just says grace and peace out. Like he's done. He's like, this is to use his language, it's beyond a redemptive medium.
Yeah. Because
It's hard to get, like it grieves me that it has to get to that point for some people.
So I said this on a previous podcast, but social media is a nightclub of the internet. Okay? Is that if you think it's an astute lecture hall, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
Is it bad for you to go to a nightclub? Well, what are your intentions when you go to a nightclub? Sometimes I just like the dance music.
Yeah.
Is that I think it's a fun space,
Yep.
it's a happy space, but it's not a place for complex theological
Yeah.
debate.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Twitter, that's
Yep.
the problem with Instagram, that's the problem with Facebook, right? Is that if I'm just going there to share the photos of my trip to Disneyland,
Yeah.
great spot.
Yeah.
But if I need to share the love of Jesus on a profound, challenging topic, almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's why we have a podcast and a Discord channel.
Yes.
So we can actually have proper conversations as opposed to an Instagram
Yep.
page where we have the same
Yep.
conversation. It's not the place. And that's where I think you've got to... they're so big now, they're behemoths. We're not going to be able to transform Facebook into what we want it to
No.
be.
No.
And John Tyson couldn't do it with
Yep.
Twitter. We're not going to be able to do it with Twitter
Yep.
either. It's 140 characters.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we don't know how to engage with stuff because we're so used to being fed the cupcake,
Yep.
right? What the algorithm needs to do is, I've seen you've had 4 cupcakes. Here's an apple. And by the way, you don't get to scroll on.
I don't think the algorithm loves us enough to do that.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Because for you to be healthy, you need to hear opposing viewpoints and you have to stomach them and sit with them and flesh them out and understand why you're angry about it. And if you can't do those things, then you're just getting fed cupcakes on
Yep.
social media and it's not healthy.
So where do we go from here? And I guess a subset of that is, like, what difference does being a Christian make in this conversation?
So this is purely me.
Yep.
And take it or leave it, is
Yep.
that I treat it like the nightclub of the internet. I don't go clubbing a whole bunch. So I go there once a week.
Yep.
I have a good time.
Yep.
I check in quick. Occasionally, I'll make a comment on one of your posts for our Dead Elephants thing, or give it a like, or give all of them a like that I haven't given a like to. But I'm not there for robust conversation. That has to take place somewhere else. That's where I think I've had to establish for social media is that, and in doing that, it has allowed me more space to create
Yeah.
healthy content to share on that,
Yeah.
right? Because if we're going to shift it to a place that it needs to be,
Yes.
it's a big ship.
Yep.
It's got a small rudder, so it's going to be incremental.
Yep.
If we're going to realign it in a healthy place.
Yep.
And so I create good content. I put it out there. Some people disagree with it. I don't care.
Yep.
We're at a nightclub. But hopefully, what I'm trying to do is have deeper, richer conversations as a result of that, and just shift it a little bit.
Well, what I like about what you're saying is you're not just like pooing on the whole notion. You want to see something different for it, so you contribute something different.
Yep.
Yep. Rather than just critiquing it from the outside or absorbing yourself so much in it that you're not even questioning it.
Well, and there's two parts to this, right? As content creators, let's create things that are worthy of creation,
Yes.
that are iron sharpening iron things.
When I wrote my book, I asked myself, do I think the world needs to hear this? So it's not just about me putting my name to a cover. It's, would this be helpful to people? I think so. So we'll do it.
Okay. Yeah, so I ask a slightly different question, which is, does this add value to a person's life, or does this bring person joy? So I do like the idea
Yep.
of creating something funny,
Yeah.
just for the sake of creating something funny.
Yep.
But the second part of the conversation, which I think we're seeing in Silicon Valley, is an ethical transformation of digital devices, platforms, and social media. And so it needs to happen at the start of the river,
Yep.
and then it needs to happen along the journey.
Yep.
And those two things need to transform to get it to a better shape.
Yeah. There is one more component to this that I've thought through, which is, as pastors, we always want to look at contextualizing the gospel.
Yeah.
We don't want to be cringy. We don't want to look like we're, I don't know, in a 1980s red brick building in an era that's now whatever.
Yeah.
You get my analogy. I still agree with that to a degree, that we need to use technology, but we need to be in culture. We need to be incarnational, all these paradigms. I also wonder, though, the counterpoint to that is, in such a digital age, the differentiation now that the local church offers in face-to-face community might actually be our greatest strength.
Yeah.
So the world has changed so much around us. We haven't kept up. The entrepreneur in me goes, oh, that's bad. We should have kept up. I actually think now we're at a point where the world is at such a digital disconnected point. It knows it. It doesn't have an alternative framework. And here's the little old local church who's never changed along the way,
Yeah.
suddenly offering a different currency that people are craving. And I think quality, community, face-to-face engagement, deep love, deep relationship might be our greatest missional strategy in this digital age.
And you can do that smaller. Like, I switch my phone off and put it in my office when I'm at church, and people would be like, I was calling you. I was like, I needed you to come find me. Like, we're slowing things down.
Yeah.
And so creating that framework, I laughed when you were saying that. I was like, maybe I should put cell phone blockers on the
You
church
should.
property and just
see people just go nuts.
no, like, well, I can't get signal. It's like, I don't need you to get signal. I need you to get Jesus while you're here, you know? And he broadcasts a different way. There's something beautiful in that,
Yeah.
is that maybe the old way suddenly is now the new cool way again.
I think that's what we're evolving into. Yeah. Or devolving. I don't know which way it is.
Right? It's history repeating itself
Yeah, that's it.
in a beautiful way.
Hey, hit us up on social media, right?
Absolutely.
All the time. You fell for it.
I did.
Got him.
But it's the way, unfortunately, that we connect right now.
Yep. But we'll just have a good time. We'll dance on the floor.
Yeah.
We won't take any drugs. We won't do anything untoward. We'll just get some drum and bass and we'll engage that way.
Well, I think the Discord chat is
Yeah.
where it's at.
Yeah.
So
that's where
jump
we
in
can
there.
deepen it.
Do that there. That's for deeper conversations and where you can ask those questions and let's flesh it out together. And then the other thing is listen, for this to work and for this to reach more people, we just need more reviews
Yep.
that are written on Apple and on Spotify. If you like it, mention it to a friend. Share it
Yep.
on social media, because we are trying to shift the rudder of a giant ship.
Yeah.
And to do that well and to have those conversations well, we want to open this up to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll see you again on Dead Elephants next week.
Good one.
Stop.